The story of Jones' career up to this point is a complicated one. He's defined by his greatness as much as he's defined by his shortcomings. And since it's been almost a full year since he last stepped into the octagon, I thought it would be a great time to review his wild ride from his humble beginnings to going toe-to-toe with the UFC and winning. This is the awesome and brilliant yet disappointing career of Jon Jones. Johnny Bones has made millions, yet he has also spent a lot of them. Jon Jones grew up very humble. It all starts in his basement without cable TV, with no secular music, and not leaving the house past sunset. But the basement would have a makeshift mat. He would spend most of his time here wrestling his brothers and unsuccessfully trying to take him down. Which, I mean, you can't blame him because both of his brothers would go on to win Super Bowls. But guess what? Turns out that grappling with a couple monsters really does get the best wrestler out of you. He did Greco-Roman wrestling non-stop since he was in 7th grade. In fact, he would go on to win a New York State Championship his senior year of high school, with dreams of making it into the Division I NCAA programs. However, Jon Jones did not have the grades to do so. Both Iowa and Iowa State were interested, but Jon Jones simply didn't have the grades, so they sent him to Iowa Community College, and he would actually win a JUCO national title his freshman year. It was here that he roomed with Joe Soto, and he would get him into this MMA thing, but at first Jon Jones wasn't sure. And after a while, Jon Jones just decided to give up on his dream of pursuing athletics and decided to become a cop. But 5 credits short of getting his associate's degree in criminal justice, his lifelong girlfriend became pregnant with Jones' kid. So Jon Jones had to drop out of school once again and work as a bouncer to get cash. And then something absolutely random happened. Somebody told Jon Jones to go check out the local gym and take some MMA classes, and Jones actually did so. And only 5 months later, Jon Jones would make his MMA debut at a Holiday Inn and against the self-proclaimed barroom brawler, Brad Bernard. Jon Jones flipped him upside his head and started beating him up. He absolutely dominated in the ring, but then would go on to sucker kick after the bell had rung.
That definitely was, looked like he was kind of a sore sport here. He needs to learn some, some cage etiquette.
And over the next 3 names, he would go by the Mark Henry inspired
Sexual Chocolate Jones.
Jon Jones would score finishes in 5 straight bouts, earning the US KBA Light Heavyweight title. And a whole 4 months after that, the 6-0 Jones would make his UFC debut at UFC 87 against Andre Guzmão with 2 weeks notice in the UFC prelims. The 21-year-old would now go by his now known name of Bones, Johnny Bones Jones. He would improve his striking by watching YouTube videos and reading Barnes & Noble's books. And he would win his next fight, followed by a highlight reel spinning back elbow against Stephan Bonner in his sophomore effort on his way to a 2nd decision victory. In the iconic UFC 100 card, Jon Jones would submit Jake O'Brien that summer. And at this point, Jon Jones decided to go ahead and move to Albuquerque, New Mexico and train with his new coach, Greg Jackson and Mike Winkeljohn. His first bout with the new team would be against Matt Hamill and would be the co-main event for the Top 10 finale. And once again, the street fighting aspect of Jon Jones would rear its ugly head as Jon Jones would get disqualified after mauling his opponent with illegal elbows. Next in 2 headlining bouts, Jones saw TKOs of Brandon Barra and the janitor Vladimir Jashenko, bringing Jon Bones Jones on a collision course with the undefeated winner of the Ultimate Fighter, Ryan Bader. And after submitting Ryan Bader, Jones was surprised with a 6-week notice title shot against Shogun Rua.
Yeah, I got 6 weeks, so I have an after party tonight, but I definitely won't be drinking. It's right back to the drawing board, and I think everything happens for a reason, and I'm not afraid of this moment. I feel as if it's my moment.
A bout made because his teammate Rashad Evans was forced to vacate the title shot because of a knee injury. Bettors were not concerned, and neither was Jon Jones, as he would come into UFC 128 as a betting favorite against Shogun Rua, who was a champion. He was signing autographs as UFC Light Heavyweight Champion 2011 before the fight even took place. However, disaster would strike hours before the fight, as Jon Jones would get into a fight with thieves the day of the event.
They just got mugged. He just broke my window open. He took all my stuff and he's running. And I just started running, right? And you know I got these gazelle legs. So the guy looks back and then he trips over his own foot. Came up with my foot and like scooped it out from under him with my foot. And so he's down on the floor and I'm thinking like, I hope I don't get stabbed right now. So I ground and pound him. Greg Jackson just comes out of nowhere, jumps on the guy's back and he starts speaking Spanish like, I'm like, you know Spanish? So I grabbed him and I like figure four his legs and I sat on his legs.
And he would become the youngest UFC champion in history at 23 years old by kneeing Shogun Rua in the head, a record that still stands to this day. And the UFC would bring Rashad Evans, his teammate, into the cage to set up a fight, teammate versus teammate, or teammate versus former teammate, as Rashad Evans would fire his whole team because he perceived them as being unloyal to them and felt betrayed. However, this match would not happen, at least not yet, as Jon Jones would have an injured thumb, sidelining him for the rest of the year, and Rashad Evans would go on to win his next fight, Bill Davis. And Rashad Evans was sure that this would ensure that he was next in line for a title shot, but it wouldn't. Turns out that the injury that Jon Jones had wasn't as severe as we thought originally, and instead he fought ultra-popular former champion Rampage Jackson at UFC 135 for his first ever title defense, and he absolutely dominated. So now it's finally time for that Evans fight, right? Well, no. Actually, Jon Jones would go on and face Lyoto Machida instead at UFC 140. And the Dragon proved troublesome early, but later on, as Jon Jones does, he adapted and managed to get a second round technical submission win. And now it's time to settle his bitter rivalry with Rashad Evans in UFC 145. And Evans had nothing for Jon Jones. He outstruck him 116-49, and now 3 defenses into his reign, and with a Texan feud against Rashad Evans in the background now, Jones' life seemed basically already made. He was buying mansions, he was buying yachts, he was buying luxury cars. However, the latter would give many signals to the decline of his career. A few days after the Evans wins, Jon Jones would get arrested in New York with DWI for crashing his $250,000 Bentley Continental into a utility post. Jon Jones had developed the early spleen, early Kurt Angle persona that many of his opponents and fans perceived as fake. Because, I mean, it kind of was.
Because you know why?
I won't.
Your fabric is fake.
My fabric is
You're
fake.
fake.
Tell me how my fake was shot.
I'm not going to get into that right here. But
Okay.
you know, I know.
So to them, this was full proof that they were right. And Jon Jones would go on and sign the first ever sponsorship as a UFC fighter with Nike, which made the fans and fighters less happy. But all of this would peak when Jon Jones would refuse to face Chael Sonnen, and this would even lead to the canceling of UFC 251.
You know, I just don't know why he won't fight me next Saturday. What else does he have to do? All he's doing is delaying the inevitable. This was his big opportunity to get me on 8 days' notice.
While not completely his fault, the UFC fans would constantly come after him because of it. A bitter wound that would never fully heal. However, he would wrestle in the next numbered event against Vitor Belfort. The Brazilian had Jones dead to rights with an armbar and even did permanent damage to Jones's arm, but somehow, with a superpower that Jon Jones has, came back and adapted and would end up beating Vitor Belfort via a key lock, disappointing all the fans who at this point had all turned on him. It was revealed that Vitor had some questionable lab results prior to the fight, but he still went in there and got in the octagon, adding further to the rift between Jon Jones and the UFC brass and the fans. Next step, Chael Sonnen worked himself into a season of The Ultimate Fighter, and in the finale, Jon Jones would absolutely put Chael Sonnen to shame. This would set the stage for Jon Jones to fight Alexander Gustafsson at UFC 165. Gustafsson gave him more than anybody had ever given him and almost beat him. Yet, Jon Jones, again, would find a way to get the win and defend that title. Jon Jones would win the fight by unanimous decision. While the fight was very close, my personal opinion is that he actually won, but due to the fact that he had never had anybody come near to touching him, and the fact that most fans hated him, it made it seem that the judges had messed up and given this win to Jones. Then he would go on to beat Glover Teixeira, and after that, the rematch would be said with Alexander Gustafsson. But Alexander Gustafsson would tear his meniscus, and he would be replaced by the undefeated Olympic wrestler turned MMA fighter and heavyweight champion, now turned light heavyweight fighter, who had been calling Jon Jones out ever since he entered the promotion. And he was truly the biggest threat that Jon Jones had ever faced. This was not only a good fit for a fight and would give Jon Jones his biggest challenge, but also it was a great fit promotional.
Oh yeah. And that's when it's gonna get good.
It's gonna be intimate.
And passionate.
And passionate. I'm gonna make him my wife. You're gonna be Mrs. Jones for the night.
That is not true.
I'm gonna rub on that big old belly.
It's gonna be right in your face. I'm gonna put it right in your face. I'm gonna take it on. I'm gonna smother you with my big old fat belly.
Constantly going back and forth in social media, the ESPN hotline incident, the brawl in the MGM Grand Lobby, and because the fight would get delayed to UFC 182, this was allowed to keep going. Whenever they got in the cage though, there would be no doubt on who was the better fighter, with at the end of the fight, Jon Jones doing the DX chop just as a sign that this feud would not be patched up. 3 days after the biggest win of his career, he would test positive for cocaine metabolites and had to check himself into rehab. The state commissioner of Nevada essentially said oopsie, and the UFC would fine Jon Jones $25,000. And Jon Jones' reputation was already completely damaged. JBJ's next match was supposed to be against Rumble Johnson, but a month prior, Jon Jones would fully sabotage his own career once again as he ran a red light and hit a vehicle crossing the intersection. One of the victims was a pregnant woman that had broken her arm. Jon Jones was given 18 months probation and is stripped of his UFC title and suspended indefinitely. And after another vehicle incident, Jon Jones would be given a slap on the wrist, and in UFC 197, he would try to reclaim his title against the now light heavyweight champion, Daniel Cormier. Fortunately, DC got injured and he would fight Ovince Prue for the interim title. Jon Jones looked rusty, but still got the W, setting up the champion against champion for the light heavyweight crown. And 2 days before the fight, Jon Jones tested positive for estrogen blockers. Jon Jones will blame this on gas station boner pills. Something that USADA actually agreed on, but the state of Nevada was actually not so kind to him and would suspend him for a year. After 3 weeks, the suspension would be lifted and he would finally rematch Cormier. And while the 2 rounds were competitive, in the third one, a head kick would spell the end of their rivalry and would finally recapture the undisputed throne of the light heavyweight division. And Jon Jones just kept angling for a big money fight, calling out former UFC World Heavyweight Champion Brock Lesnar. But Jon Jones has so much more to worry about, as he would test positive for Turinabol, which would get his decision reversed, and getting stripped for the title for a 3rd time. I'm pretty sure that's a world record, by the way. And Jon Jones' lawyers definitely helped him out, as he served a 15-month suspension when he originally was looking at 48 months. Daniel Cormier would go on to become the double champ of the light heavyweight and the heavyweight division, but eventually would abandon 205 over time, which left the division completely wide open. And he would face for this title against Alexander Gustafsson. However, once again, you can have a Jon Jones match without a dumpster fire. Due to some pulsing picograms in his system of the Turinabol, a trace amount that USADA determined couldn't have been from reingestion, the event would have to be moved from Las Vegas, Nevada to the Coliseum in Los Angeles because Nevada got cold feet because of the picograms. And the fight would not really live up to the expectations. However, Jon Jones would win once again, meaning becoming the UFC Light Heavyweight Champion once again, and he would see 3 more defenses. The first fight was a complete domination of Anthony Smith that he almost got disqualified, an illegal knee strike, and the other 2 were 2 fights too close to call against Thiago Santos, but he would end up winning both. The latter, with many of them think that should have gone to the challenger. Not to say that this fight had no drama, because he would be involved in a battery case with a waitress at the strip club. 2 months after the Reyes fight though, Jon Jones would be arrested for aggravated DWI, negligent use of a firearm, possession of an open container, and driving with no proof of insurance. All this took place during lockdown, so he would be sentenced to house arrest and probation therapy and community service. so nothing really that affected his career. And Jon Jones now wanted to fight against Francis Ngannou. However, this fight stalled because both Jon Jones and Francis Ngannou wanted more money. So Jon Jones vacated the light heavyweight championship and said that he would start training and putting out muscle to fight at heavyweight. Let me wait for my bunch of money. Jon Jones would get a fight inducted into the Hall of Fame that night. However, he would get arrested once again. And Jon Jones would switch to train with Henry Cejudo now, as he had an upcoming fight with Cyril Gane. And Jon Jones would go ahead and win this fight and negotiate himself paycheck for the ages. In fact, I made a video about how much money each and every single of the top 10 fighters of the UFC got paid, and Jon Jones is on that list because of his negotiation skills. So how about you check out that video and find out how much he made from this fight. I'll see you in the next video. See ya!
Ballin' now, skirt down, all of these diamonds sold. Bottom for me with the yours now. You could drink it, but take it slow. Ballin' for you, falling for you.